Hello everyone, this is a video about Acme. Thought I'd spend a few minutes to show the basic functionality for newcomers, things that I didn't know worked the way they do that might help other people understand how to use this. Acme came out of Plan 9. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife. It does editing, it does folder views, it does all kinds of things. I use it mostly for development work, but it could be used for other things, I suppose. So here doesn't look like a typical Acme window because I've reduced everything back to the most simplest form that I could. So all you can see here is a big white screen, and then there's the top level menu bar here. Now, the menu bar is not like your typical menu bar, I suppose. I normally thought of these things as sort of static, but you can see here that I can kind of place my cursor. So that gives you a little bit of a hint that this thing is not just static. You can add things to this. So something that's important about Acme and Plan 9 in general is that it assumes a 3-button mouse. I know on this Mac here I don't have a 3-button mouse, so I kind of have to simulate the 3 buttons. It's not really usable if you don't have a 3-button capability of some sort. Ideally you actually have a 3-button mouse, but if you're on Mac like me, and using Plan 9 port, there are ways to simulate the other mouse buttons. So left button click works kind of like you would expect. It positions the cursor in a text editor. Kind of makes sense. The other thing you can do is you can do a middle button click. So this is really important in Acme. Middle button is what's going to invoke these menu items. So if I wanted to exit right now, what I do is I would middle button click on the exit button, or the exit menu item here. Now I'm on a Mac, so what I have to do is I have to hold down the Alt key to do a middle button click. So I hold down the Alt key and then I click on the item. So if I wanted to exit Acme right now, I just middle click or Alt click on the exit button here. Similarly, if I want to add a new column, or I want to kill something, or I want to put all, which is kind of like Acme's version of save, I could save everything by middle clicking or Alt clicking on this thing. This is not very interesting because right now I don't have any columns. So let's add a new column by middle clicking on new call. This is beginning to look a little bit more like what you would expect from the other screenshots and videos you might have seen about Acme, because we now have a column. Now with each column you get a bunch of new menu items, actions that you can invoke. There's new, which creates a new buffer like we have here. There's cut, paste, snarf, which is an Acme and Plan 9 term that kind of resembles copy. It doesn't entirely work the way the copy works, so they give it a different name. There's some sorting, and you can delete the column. There's Xeroxing, which I've never used, but you can read up on it if you want to try that. So here we have a buffer, and I think it's important to show, it's important to see that Acme, almost everything is editable. So like I was showing you before, you can actually move the mouse cursor around in these menu bars. In theory, you could even type new commands here. I could type, Unix commands too. So echo, hello. So let's highlight that and let's run it. See, and actually it created a new buffer. Actually, I think the correct term here is window, not buffer. Just thought I'd use a term that kind of made sense to me, but I think in the documentation these are referred to as windows. So you can see it actually ran this Unix command and outputted it here. I think it's important to see Acme as an editor that tries to work with the operating system rather than trying to be its own operating system. I know for many years I used Eclipse for doing Java development work, and Eclipse in a lot of ways tried to become kind of its own operating system. Acme, I think, tries to work in harmony with the operating system a bit more, well, at least with Plan 9 operating system a bit more. So it often just gives you these facilities to, run a command on the OS, like this echo here. So what's interesting is this window here is not like your typical terminal or your Xterm, in the sense that I can actually go here and edit what this command outputted. I can even erase everything that it put. Yeah, so these things are kind of editable. Now, in this case here, I'm going to just close this window by hitting the delete action. And I'm back to this one again. This is a kind of an empty buffer here, so I could just start typing some text. And if I want to save this thing, I can actually just give it a path. So let's give it a path on my system. Oops, that's the other thing that I'm still getting used to a little bit with Acme that is important as well, is the position of your cursor is more important here than it is in other environments. So you can see here that wherever I put the cursor, that's where I'm going to start typing. So if I want to type in the menu bar here, I better make sure the cursor stays in the menu bar area. So let's save this file as that. Okay, so now that I've given this a file path, when I hit the put action here, it's actually going to save this file. So let's try that out. Put. Great, now it's saved. If I make changes to it, you can see that the undo action shows up. And there's some nice undo redo capabilities here too. Undo, redo. So there's an undo stack there, which is rather nice. And pretty easy to get at. Alright, so we'll save this. Now, let's say that we want to go and look at a folder, or look at a directory. It doesn't really matter where I select the text, but I can select any text I want that happens to say this. Could be in here too. I could actually have a bit of text in here that points to that path. But if I want to navigate somewhere or open something, what I do is I end up doing a right click. Now on Mac, that ends up being a command click with the Plan 9 port. But if you have a 3-button mouse, right click will work. So let's open that up. So here's the directory structure of my home directory. If I want to open up a folder within here, it's actually pretty easy. I can navigate by right-clicking on something else. Now, these are relative paths to this path here, right? So Acme knows about that, so when I right-click on something in here, it's actually going to naturally append whatever this name is to the path that is in the window title here. So if I were to open up some source code here by right-clicking, see, it knew that it must combine this file name with that prefix and open it up here. So it's kind of cool. Now, on Plan 9 port and Acme, the ability to open something up is done through a facility called Plumber, which is a kind of IPC mechanism. On my Mac here, I'm actually capable of right-clicking on a hyperlink, and it'll actually open up my web browser and view it. It has similar rules for different file extensions. So it's actually kind of useful. You can navigate quite nicely with the right-click stuff. So again, here I can close these windows if I don't want them anymore. There's my hello world that I had before. I can right-click on that, and it just takes me back to the existing window that was already open on it. If you want, you can have links like this with a colon, which is pretty typical of compiler outputs. Like they'll often say, oh, if there's a compile error on some file, it'll have, you know, file name, colon, and a line number. So let's say, for example, that I put some text like this in this file. I can right-click on that. It actually takes me right to line 22. Some actually really interesting capabilities around this linking mechanism in the Plumber interactions that I won't go into in this video, but you can do really interesting things like line ranges and regex matches and stuff with these links. So for example, if you meant for hello world.txt to be a kind of documentation for your source code, for example, you could put links to various portions of your source code in here And in fact, as I kind of alluded to earlier with this echo command, you could even put in, the commands that need to be run to compile the code. You could put it into a text file like this and sort of document them. And it's actually executable, so as I mentioned before, when you want to run things in Acme, you middle click. So if I wanted to run go build, I could actually just middle click on this text here by selecting it, and it'll actually run that command, or it should. Yeah, it didn't like that command at the moment because of various problems. But interestingly enough, see these arrows here, I can right click on them, and it takes me right to the place where the problem exists. So I think this is a really quick intro to Acme. I think the key points I wanted to get across in the video is that virtually everything is editable, and there's three buttons on the mouse that have three different purposes in Acme. Left being just sort of to select things, as you would kind of expect. Right click to navigate to things, and also middle click to run things, whether it's items in the menu bars, in the window title bars, or commands that you want to run against the prompt. There's the middle button click there. Well, thanks for watching. I hope this was a brief but interesting dive into Acme. I hope it's useful. Thank you.